All right, guys, out here, Lake X. It is summertime at Lake X. Sorry about the camera action here, guys. Summertime at Lake X is not the greatest in the world, but for today's purposes, doing some testing out of the trolling motor that I just fixed. Got a brand new rod and reel, and that being G-Loomis NRX Plus 822 Shaky head rod, SYR, and a brand new 2021 Accents 3000. It's my Shaky head rod. We're going to talk today about how to fish Shaky head in a mud hole. Let's get it. Let's talk about what a Shaky head is, how to tie it on. Again, this episode is dedicated to how I fish a Shaky head, and one of my all-time favorite worms to put on a Shaky head is a 4.8 inch Jackal Flick Shake in Cola. But this is just a small Shaky head with a 4/0 hook. I pour on myself, has a screw lock here. 4/0 hook. I like the bigger hooks as opposed to 3/0s. You can buy them in 3 and 4, whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to tie this thing on my favorite knot. It's totally up to you guys how you go about doing that. But Shaky head fishing is one of my absolute favorite go-to finesse baits all times of the year. The reason for that is that you can fish a ton of different baits on this head. You can rig it weedless, and if you have the proper gear, you can feel everything on the bottom. I've caught a ton of fish on a Shaky head. I've caught some big fish, but I've never caught any trophy size fish on a Shaky head. However, if I'm fishing finesse techniques like this Shaky head, it's a tough day for me. I'd much rather have a bait caster in my hand, but when I can't have a bait caster in my hand, I'm going to be throwing this Shaky head. Again, so Shaky head's tied on there. It says it has a screw lock right here, and that screw lock, especially on this type of head, gives you a way to rig this weedless. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your bait. Again, this is a 4.8 inch Jackal Flick Shake, which is not, this worm's really not even designed for this technique. This is actually designed for wacky rigging. However, man, I tell you what, this thing has a ton of action in the water. And what we're going to do is we're going to find where that hook is going to come through. So I'm going to put it about right here. I'm going to pinch. I'm going to bring it back through, and I'm going to make my worm or my hook go all the way through that worm. I'm not going to leave it that way. I'm going to expose it, put the hook in there as flat as possible, like that right there. Give this thing a spritz of JB's fish sauce, and I'm in it. So let's talk about my gear. How am I fishing this thing? So let's talk about my gear a little bit. So new to me this year, new to everybody, is a 2021 G-Loomis NRX Plus. This is an 822, which is a 6'10" 2-power mag medium Shaky head rod. I always get the question, what's the difference between the 822 Shaky head rod and the 822 drop shot rod? This has a little more backbone than the drop shot rod. That's going to be the only difference. They're the same length and things. I have this thing paired up with a brand new 2021 Accents C3000 MHG. This thing is absolutely the highest end combo that I have, and it absolutely weighs nothing. This thing is crazy light, super light. I'm out here fishing today, again, fishing the Shaky head not because I don't think it's going to be a great bait today. I got this new rod, I want to put it through its paces, but I want to talk to you guys about how to fish a Shaky head properly, or at least how I fish it, and maybe you can get out there and catch some fish. So again, when we're throwing this thing out there, you're going to fish it just like any other jig. Cast it out. You can cast this thing, especially if you have it rigged like I have and you have it weedless. You can throw this thing around brush and timber and piles and everything else. But what you can do is, you bring it back to you slowly. We want to feel every little thing on the bottom of the lake, and that is a game changer if you really get the hang of throwing that. Having a really high-end rod, in my opinion, this is one of the few places that I think anything that's bottom contact, I feel like NRX, Conquest, Poison Adrena, even Zodius, those types of rods are going to excel in this situation because you're going to be able to feel a lot more, and you're going to feel a lot more bites. And a lot of times on a Shaky head, the bite is a lot more subtle. So they're going to pick this thing up and they're going to run with it. You're going to see their line moving. So that's why I've got this paired up with 15-pound Power Pro Super Slick V2 in Moonshine. I do have an 8-pound leader. This is a 8-pound Super Slick, or I'm sorry, 8-pound FC Sniper by Sunline, my favorite. You guys know that I'm a huge Sunline fan. But I'm going to be throwing this thing out, try to catch a fish. So again, not that I think we're going to smash them on this bait today, but I'm going to teach you guys how to throw this bait. Hopefully we catch one. All right, so again, water temperature out here is 81 degrees, close to it, which blows my mind. I wouldn't think it would be that warm. It is mid-June here in Southern Ohio. And again, I'm fishing this Shaky head for multiple reasons today. One, is one of my favorite finesse baits. Two, I don't have a video showing my technique of fishing a Shaky head. And I just got this sweet new setup to throw a Shaky head, and I about got my head taken off. That's about what I got. But I'm out here trying to catch a fish. Again, I don't think that this is going to be the most opportune bait to catch them out here today. The water is really, really muddy. We've had a lot of rain here in the past few weeks. I feel like I could catch a fish or two on it. If I were going to throw a bait out here and probably get bit, I would throw a spinner bait, something that makes some noise, top water, buzz bait, popper, something in that nature. But I didn't even drag another rod out of the rocker. I got this one here and this one here locked in my hand. So you talk about fishing a Shaky head. Shaky head's really easy to fish. Again, showed you guys how to rig it just a second ago. And you can't see where I'm casting, but anything that you see on the water that's sticking out from the bank, rocks, wood, cattails, you name it, this thing is great to fish around that. And the reason that is because, again, when you have a rigged weedless, you can drag this thing in and around a lot of cover and timber without the risk of getting hung up. However, if you do, sometimes you get it back. A lot of times you break it off, which is no big deal because, again, just like I said, I pour my own with the Do It mold. I do like fishing tungsten. Obviously don't have the opportunity to do that right now with the Shaky head and pouring tungsten or compressing it or whatever the thing is. But so I pour my own, so it's not a big deal. I have very little money in it, and as the hole goes, as far as, you know, having the mold and the lead and stuff, it's pretty bad for you. Make sure you're doing it outside in open air. But I'm casting to stuff on the bank, whether that be you know, cattails, or there's lily pad stems in here, timber, there's stumps, whatever I can see, I'm pitching this thing to. So I'm going to cast it out. I'm going to let this thing hit the bottom. I'm going to let it hit the bottom. I'm going to make ssure it's hitting the bottom. So I'm going to watch my line. And again, that's another thing that you want to kind of play in the key is that have a bright, you know, some bright braid is key for me because I like watching my line. A lot of times, you know, see a fish hit it. Again, on a Shaky head, sometimes they just absolutely wear it out. Sometimes it's a really subtle bite, which, you know, that's with that line. I can see when it stops sinking, so I know that it's on the bottom. Even if it's sand, I know that I'm on the bottom. And as I'm pulling it back, what I'm doing is I'm just hopping that bait, kind of making it do kind of like a leapfrog effect. And then every now and again, I'll just drag it. I'll just pick up the rod. Then I'll reel my slack down. If you find fish that are really lethargic and they want very, very slow baits, that's sometimes the only way you can catch them. Just picking up your rod, allowing that thing to move right across the bottom. Feel for any differences of line or the way it feels. Set the hook. And again, I can't stress enough that bottom contact techniques like a Shaky head or a jig or anything that you're dragging on the bottom, a Texas rig, I am 100% all for you spending the money, getting a really high-end rod. Again, you guys know I like Shimano and Loomis, Zodius, X-Pride, NRX Plus. Now, again, this is an 822 SYR, NRX Plus. Conquest, if you can afford it, they do shine and they do make a difference. Being able to feel every little bite. Matter of fact, I just get hit by a bluegill there. And you need that. You need the ability to feel those subtle bites when you're fishing finesse techniques like this. So spend the money, buy a little higher end rod for this technique. Got a timber cove coming up here. I call it a timber cove, just got some lay downs and stuff in it. I'm gonna point my boat in here on it, make some casts up in the shallows. This muddy water is gonna have these fish pushed tight to cover, I would imagine. Up in this grass, trees, stumps, wherever you can have it. Normally, especially if it's new muddy water, they'll get really close up to cover and stay there. I think it's more safe feeling to them. It also allows them to ambush prey and eat a little easier. This is a key spot for a shaky head because you can fish this thing pretty much, however you want through this cover here, because it's weedless again. You can feel pretty much everything that's on the bottom, and it's really subtle. So this is a really high pressured lake, so they see a lot of baits. This way, I feel like you have the best of all worlds. So fish right there. Again, guys, as I'm fishing this bait, it's really the water temperature is 80 plus degrees. Chocolate milk. I'm using a dark worm, obviously. Again, it's a 4.8 inch Jackal flick shake, but I'm feeling every little thing on the bottom, casting towards these lily pad stems in the grass, in trees. I'm casting in the thick of things with this thing. Again, if you get hung up, a lot of times you can get it back. But having the weedless aspect of the shaky head is one of the biggest things about this finesse bait compared to any other. For example, you can't throw a drop shot and stuff like that. You're not gonna be able to throw a Ned rig in there. This kind of outshines a lot of those finesse techniques. Kind of puts you in the mind of a Texas rig. One thing about this is this has a really fast drop, and a lot of times it presents the bait standing up, especially if you're using some of the screw lock and you're holding tension on the line. So that's why it's so important to gradually keep tension on the line. So one, you can feel those subtle strikes from the fish. You can also, you're pulling the bait up out of the water off the bottom, so that it's in the strike zone a little bit better. It's going to be more enticing for a bass. Man, that felt just like a fish.
Okay, if it was,
so guys, again, these are not the most opportune, situation. This is not the most opportune situation to throw a shaky head. However, if I'm looking for a place to throw a shaky head, I will throw this thing anytime, anywhere. Spring, summer, fall, you name it. Shaky head actually catches them everywhere. We haven't managed to catch any today on the shaky head. However, again, we're fishing really muddy water, and this is a really, really high pressure lake. I didn't come out here expecting to catch a ton of them. I figured we catch one or two, but we passed probably 10 boats coming out here already, so we're fishing behind 7 or 8 people at least on the same banks. This lake is really, really small as opposed to most of the lakes I fish. But if you're looking for a spot to throw a shaky head, as far as the best conditions, in my opinion, anytime you have super clear water and there's rocks or cover around, shaky head is hard to beat. You're gonna be able to throw this bait way more often than you will any other bait. For example, you're not gonna be able to pitch a drop shot or a Ned rig in any of these places I'm putting this shaky head, because it's weedless if you have it rigged correctly. Allows you to fish, or you find the bottom and feel what kind of structure that you're fishing. You can feel, especially, again, we talked about it, your gear on bottom contact is uber important when it comes to having the right techniques. Tree bass. I was rudely interrupted there. But one of the biggest things about this bottom contact fishing, with whether that be a Ned rig, shaky head, whatever, I feel like a high-end rod and reel combo is definitely worth the money for that situation. No fish today on the shaky head. Didn't expect to come out here and wreck them on them. Again, muddy water, not the greatest conditions for this. But if you are fishing muddy water or other areas, one of the things you can do with your worm is you can spike it and dip the tail of it, because what happens is your bait is going to present like this on the bottom, and then the tail is going to be floating up. and it's going to get bit a lot of times because the fish is going to nose down on it. And just by dragging the bait on the water, or on the bottom of the in the water, or jigging it or twitching it, is going to cause that tail to have a lot of action. A couple of baits that I throw on this all the time. Again, this Jackal Flick Shake is my favorite. Next is going to be a Berkley Power Bait. They have a Magnum Shaky Head worm that I really absolutely like. And they are and another bait that I like to throw is a Robo Worm Hot Tip. I really like that worm. It's really, really good. Zoom makes a really good shaky head worm. There's a bunch of them. It doesn't matter really the size. Upsize it if you're fishing for bigger fish. You know, I'll throw a 6-inch Jackal Flick Shake on here. Even a 7-8-inch, depends on what you're looking at. That Magnum Shaky Head worm from Power Bait or from Berkley is a fairly large bait as well. But no fish on the shaky head today. But if you're looking for a spot, or you're looking for a bait that works all times of year and you can't get them to bite anything else, check out the shaky head. You will not regret it more often than not. Guys, I appreciate the love and support on the channel. Those of you guys that have subscribed and share my content, I appreciate that very much. Hope this video helps you out learning how to fish the shaky head a little better. Don't take the 0 fish today for anything that's means anything. Again, we're in a really high pressure lake here and we're fishing behind a lot of people. But if you're looking for a bait that works a lot of times at a lot of different places, check out the shaky head. It's a really good finesse bait. Guys, if you can, get out there and lean on them. We'll see you next time on another line.